I think the honorable thing for our species to do is deny our programming. Stop reproducing. Walk hand in hand into extinction. One last midnight, brothers and sisters opting out of a raw deal.
Do not trust any friends or family members. I repeat, do not trust friends.
Yeah, I wonder if there's like, what's the name for that particular fetish? The chewing, heavy breathing fetish. There must be like.
I don't think it's like it all kind of goes together for me. It's like puffy nipples, hairy backs.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just like real human interaction fetish.
Just really like just bad human stuff. Like really like kind of armpity.
That's just good fun. That's good.
Yeah.
Clean fun.
Fuck, I opened right up to I can't deal with this right now. I can't deal with that either, a teenager in the fucking Turtles book.
All right. Well, you relax there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
But speaking of good clean fun, we read Thor. We read Jason Aaron's Thor.
We beefed right into the complete collection, started volume 1 and just pounded out a dozen issues or so.
Yeah. I'm halfway through volume 2, which also has really good art, but like not different flavor. When what I think his name Russell Dodderman or something like that. It's very good, but not as good as Esad Ribic. So
is that who's on our first run?
Yeah. Issues 1 through 5 is
this
Ribic.
Paint? Is this guy paint? He's like Alex Rossing it a little bit though, not in the issues, but the covers.
Potentially, the colors are being done by Dean White, so I really can't.
Artist.
Yeah. So I don't know. He's just doing pencils and inks. Which is not nothing. Yeah.
And he's really, I don't know if you were gonna, saw that coming, but the Busiek Conan art is what it sort of reminds me of.
Oh yeah, well of course, yeah, it's like that Carrie Nord stuff. Yeah, and the coloring. I wouldn't surprise me if it was the same colorist. I didn't look it up though, but so like I was saying, it's Thor: God of Thunder issues 1 through 12, which were January 2013 to October 2013. Actually, yeah, still in the 13s. This book's almost 10 years old. That's weird. Does not feel that way.
No, I know. There's some stuff that's like that slipped right past me that this was happening.
Mm-hmm. I knew about it. I just didn't care. My interest in Jason Aaron's Thor didn't pick up until Lady Thor comes in. Just because I was kind of curious about how how he was handling that, and then I discovered that he was handling it extremely well. And I bought like 6-7 issues of that. Really enjoyed it.
I know. I'm actually like probably going to continue reading into as soon as I picked up the scenario and at the end of this book that you pushed me into after the Gore setup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I can sort of see where he's going with it, and I think it's very cool.
And the weird thing is actually I don't think you fully like it gets. Jason Aaron has 2 modes. So he's worked on Wolverine. He started at Marvel Comics working on Wolverine, and he did a book for Vertigo called Scalped, which is about sort of violence at a reservation, and it stars all like Aboriginal characters and stuff like that. And so he's got like sort of a real down and gritty, violent style that he opened up to. And he wrote Ghost Rider, and he did some Punisher Max. And then,
how's that Wolverine run?
I've read bits of it. It's pretty good. It's got, it's Ron Garney art. You get different mileage on that. But anyway, I haven't read all of it, so I really can't say. But there's some issues that kind of struck I was like, we should probably talk about some of those issues, like the way he handles Wolverine. But then he got into a book that he called Wolverine and the X-Men. And we sort of discovered, it seemed to me anyway, that we discovered another mode of Jason Aaron, which is like goofy and zany and cheesy. And you don't see it in this part of his Thor run. Here he's solid Conan, solid Wolverine, solid like grim sort of, like with only a few jokes.
I don't, I don't care for zany very often.
Yeah.
That's real hard to do. Is for me in a comic especially.
Ironically,
I don't like. I know, very funny, and I don't like. Yeah, I like Garfield, okay, but like really, like I don't read fucking Deadpool. Like I'm not the only person that's ever achieved like full zany for me, and he did it with sick humor was Vasquez. Johan Vasquez did it. You pulled it off. I bought those books. I laughed at panels and insanity, but not that's so rare.
Yeah, other than I want to say like Ed the Happy Clown and two maybe.
That very good also. Yeah, but those are like almost like indie books. They're not
Well, that's it.
Not a lot of mainstream zane that you can throw. Oh, maybe the Ecstatics is a bit zany.
Yeah, that's I was thinking Allred and the Ecstatics is maybe the closest you'll get to what works as far because like the reason something like Vasquez, Johnny the Homicidal Maniac and Ed the Happy Clown, like those things work because there's no limits and it's straight up cartooning and it's gross and there's dicks and like everything that you want. And Jason Aaron can only be sort of cute in a Marvel superhero comic book, and like I definitely don't want to see Wolverine and the X-Men doing cute things. Like he has them fighting children, like a Hellfire Club composed of children, and you're like, well, okay, well. And I've complained about this in other episodes. I'm just like, well, there goes all the stakes. Like Wolverine shouldn't be fighting children and children shouldn't be beating him. And so I'm not interested anymore. And it left a real bad taste in my mouth. So bad, in fact, that I didn't pick up this Thor run. I didn't even give it any consideration, even though it looked fucking great. Because I really lost faith in him.
Well, no, like I don't have any appreciation for that kind of like, I like standalone stories. I like if someone has a direction for a character that they want to take and it's going to be fucking grotesque or bizarre or awful or even zany. Hey, do your thing. But like, I like that to be a one shot. And I don't like if you're going to do that, don't carry my character's mythos through it. Yeah, I don't, if that makes sense. It's like that. If you want to do the Batman thing and you want to jerk around like Garth Ennis, fantastic. Don't alter Batman. It's not necessary. Do your own take on him. Slide your jokes in there. Make other things gross and weird. Make characters that don't mess with the mythos. I don't know. That's how you do it. That's how you do it right.
Well, then I think Jason Aaron actually is kind of successful in that regard. I don't want to spoil it too much if you're going to read it, but basically it's going to be Thor kind of becoming. Well, yeah, I think we see the beginnings of it in issue 12, and I know we're jumping around, but he becomes sort of an environmentalist. It becomes like Thor versus a giant, rapacious, polluting, destructive corporation, and kind of funny things emerge out of that, a little bit, and then like really weird situations, and
that kind of sounds good, even though it's fucking weird.
Well, no, I liked it, and I think I didn't finish reading all of it. I think I will now, based on definitely on the strength of these opening issues, which I guess we should get around to talking about.
Yeah.
So actually, but before we do that, let's just talk about Mr. Esad Ribic a little bit. Another Marvel mainstay who broke into the industry in the year 2000. He's done a miniseries on Loki. He worked with Silver Surfer with J. Michael Straczynski, apparently, or maybe only did the covers. He did a mini series, I think, on Namor with Peter Milligan, which that has all the makings of that's got to be the weirdest mini series. He did this, a bunch of Thor stuff with Jason Aaron. He did a major crossover, the Secret Wars crossover with Jonathan Hickman, and nowadays he's working with Kieran Gillen on the Eternals. I don't like the work that he's doing on the Eternals. Like, it looks good like this, but I think this book is really good. Like, this suits him.
Oh man, I couldn't give a fuck about the Eternals.
Well, that's fair.
Impossible to write well. Anyway, no, sorry. I think I have it. I think Neil did one.
Yeah, but I didn't even like that one either.
I didn't mind it, and that's as okay as it gets.
Yeah. Okay. So Esad here, Mr. Ribic. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it properly. It's Croatian, apparently. You say it's got a Thor vibe. It's a Carrie Nord.
Oh, yeah, Conan vibe.
Yeah.
But I think that's deliberate with the young Thor. The young Thor is fucking. They're like, what can we do? Like, and they play it as risky as they can for a Marvel comic. But I mean, this guy's with a bunch of Vikings. He's young. He's a baby. It's hundreds of years ago, and he's raping and pillaging, and letting people worship him, and bedding women. He's Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah.
And it's awesome.
Yeah. It's kind of what you want to see from a young Thor, and this is pre him being able to pick up Mjolnir.
And you can get away with those type of that type of womanizing and brash behavior and be like, oh, that's a bit risky for a Thor character, but then you get your undertone or your subtext of oh, well, he's not worthy yet to pick up Mjolnir, so it basically, I can say that his deeds are unjust just by that.
Yeah. But he still has a sort of a sense of justice and righteousness, but he's also he's a hothead and a blowhard
and a moron.
Yeah.
He's wicked though.
And they find a head in the water. He's not from our village, and it's an Aboriginal god of some sort, and he just looks in, and we don't know it's a god at first. And then one complaint I want to make about Ribic is
his stunned faces.
Yes, yeah. It's like he took a picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger and just kind of turned it in part frog, and that's the only way he knows how to illustrate the human emotion of being stunned.
They're surprised as fuck, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Just an absolute, yeah.
And every time, since we're on the subject of complaints, I might as well bring it up. Also, there'll be those scenes where people's jaw has dropped and they're making that frog face, and then
I'm looking at one.
And the words that come out of their mouth really don't match the image. In those moments, it's almost always a mismatch between word and image, and it's that's a fundamental sin in comics. That's a real failure.
Because really, I mean, you could remedy that just by giving me one go.
Yeah. Silence, it's something. But yeah, so that's the only complaint I really have, because otherwise I know what everybody's emotions are. The storytelling is very clear. The panels naturally, there's a way that comics artists draw generally, if they're competent, where the line of sight leads you to the next panel, to the next panel, to the next panel, and it's sort of a subconscious thing. And his art does an excellent job of that. Thor's looking down, and then the character of Thor in the next panel is holding the axe down, and then the blade of the axe points to the next panel, and it's kind of it just the eye naturally follows the action on the page, and that's some real basic stuff, but carried off well. I never feel lost or confused, even though it's very otherworldly and very you go to a lot of different places.
And you time jump, which is also something that's not. It's done a lot. It's not always done well.
Yeah. I guess we should say there's 3 different stories at play here in these first 12 issues, except for issue 6, which is just sort of an extended flashback into the villain's origin. But otherwise, there's the 19 or 900 AD essentially, young Thor, and then we've got present day Thor,
who's
and then
we've got to some alien.
Yes,
whose kid prayed to him, and then He like insulted Odin. And we're really like, I feel like there's a bit of a lot of like a duty and royalty that's presented too in this the version of Thor that's different.
Yes.
Not different. Sorry, it's always
Yeah.
there. It's just everything's done well. This is I understand Thor. Like I like the character. I understand what he's going through. I think he has a personality of his own, you know. It's just like how can it always be written so poorly and then get this?
Yeah, because even going through J. Michael Straczynski, you know, say what you want about him, and I don't have a whole lot good to say about him. He has his moments, and you expect his run on Thor to have produced something like this. I think he did a better job of sort of bringing out Loki than Thor. But yeah, I don't think I've ever encountered anyone who, you know, and I'm not a big Thor reader, but I always dip in. You know, I like to taste the wares, you know, that's just my habit. And yeah, I agree. Like this is easily the best version of Thor I've ever read. I like this character, even like to the extent that I like Thor. Because all of his weaknesses are still present, but it's nice to see like young Thor is really brash and shitty. Present day Thor is brash but tempered, and like he goes to the library to solve problems, right?
Yeah.
And he, you know, and he asks for help from his friends, and he atones for the mistakes of the past, and he's kind to people. As we're like, you know, that's why I wanted you to read that issue 12, because I was like, wow, you know, like this is really something different than we've ever really got from Thor. And then future Thor, Odin Thor, is kind of like, that's the mythical Thor, where like you just end up in that recurring pattern, or that situation where like you just become your dad.
Yeah, which is cool. I like the way it's handled, and I like his attitude. And he does picked up his own little nuances, you know, like he learned lessons from his father. Like he won't make the same mistakes, but still sort of ends up in the same pattern.
Yeah. Which that's what happens. Sadly, that's a very lifelike thing. So young Thor encounters a dead god, and everyone's like, oh god, it's crazy. There's a big problem, and then young or present day Thor ends up on a planet where, like you were saying, a child prays, and Thor shows up and he brings the rain, but everyone's like, there are no gods, and Thor is just really, no gods in all my travels, blah blah blah, and he's really pissed off, and he grabs the old man's hand, and looks like he's gonna break him. You know, and I meant no offense, my lord. Do you tell me there are gods? And then this kind of sends present day Thor on a quest to sort of he's like, I'm gonna go find out if there are gods on this planet, because I guess
he's gonna go fucking chat with them and be like, why aren't you bringing rain to your people, dickweeds? Or like he's a stiff fucker. He's gonna go confront the situation, and he finds an absolute horror show. Like a fully like rotting corpses for whatever, was it hundreds of years, did they say?
Yeah, it's a good length of time. They're all like, yeah.
And I love the little details too. They say like, because the god flesh doesn't decay the same. So like he put them up on fucking meat hooks, Gore did, and just like puts the bodies on display. So and then he knows that they'll take centuries to rot.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about, because so you know, spoilers. This is the origin of Gore the God Butcher. But I didn't think about what that, you know, it's like all butchered like animals in their fortress without any signs of invasion or warfare, without a sign of combat of any kind. To call this butchery is an insult to honest butchers. This was something else entirely. And yeah, he's just like this horror show. Whatever. And I guess it's revealed that Thor knows who this this guy is, and he'd encountered him previously. I just what do you might as well ask, like, what do you think of Gore? By now, everyone will have flocked
Oh
to the
yeah,
theaters.
everyone's gonna get fired up about it now, but
What?
I like Gore a lot.
Mhm.
I mean, I guess this is just the makings of a typical good villain, is if he has a point, you know, or you understand their motivation or their standpoint is realistic. It's real. You could think, oh, if that happened to me, yeah, I might go that route, you know, of like Bane, or you just think, well, yeah, like that motivation's pure. Like you're doing something. That's kind of a dark example, man.
No. It's but I think you're right. I think that, like, this is like, who are Thor's villains? He's got Loki. That makes sense. Evil trickster. He's the antithesis of Thor, brother. So that makes sense. Enchantress. She's like a magical witch that he fights. Okay, fine. Ulik, the troll. Okay, fine. That guy, he's a troll.
The frost bad guys,
Yeah, he fights a dark elf and stuff. But, like, what? I just don't think he. Surtur, the fire demon, fine. But it's still kind of a thin soup, right? And this is maybe the first that I can think of, like, great addition to Thor's rogues gallery that probably has happened in decades. I feel comfortable saying that, and he's visually interesting, especially as drawn by Ribic. And like you were saying, he has a very, like, if not relatable, then certainly understandable motivation that makes sense within Thor's universe, or even within the Marvel universe. What motivates Doctor Doom? His hatred of Richards. Why? Because he's vain. What motivates this guy? He hates all gods because he wants to die and wants to make sure that he can die. There's that is dark, but you're like, okay, I get it. That's a thing.
Well, and you really, like, at first you don't really get this during the hunt.
No, not at all.
Young Thor is hunting him, and you pick up these fights along the way, and then Gore evolves as well, which is cool because you're doing the 3 timelines of Thor. So you're watching Thor become more wise, more dangerous, more powerful. But you're also watching the same thing happen to Gore through all 3 timelines, which is great, just great. And yeah, Gore, like, is it okay if I skip to the origin?
Sure. Yeah. Why not?
Like, that's where you pick up the empathy. You just watch his family die. Spoiler alert, obviously he needed some kind of motivation. So we fridge the whole family, the fucking bloodline. Fridge mom gets eaten by some fucking sand demon creatures, some sand lizards. And dad died of sunstroke. And then, and the whole while everyone's preaching to him. Believe in our God. Give them our last piece of fruit. Pray to the gods, Gore. And his fucking wife's preaching, pray to the gods, they'll take care of us, Gore, and just falls off a cliff pregnant grotesquely and just is crushed by boulders.
Yeah.
Like, fuck me. And then he finally carries his son through, like, a horrible desert heat wave to his death as well, and buries him, and then just snaps like a dry twig. And you're like, I'm with this guy.
Yeah, well, because they're like, you mustn't hide the boy. The gods must see him. And he's like, yeah. And then you're right. Yeah, he just fucking snaps. And you're like, you zealots, you fucking idiots on your goddamn barren wasteland world. Like, if you just did something to fix the world rather than expecting the gods that clearly do not exist to help you, then so
Gore,
it's like,
in Gore's case, the best case scenario would be if they didn't exist, but they did.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is, it just, like, it's just a further driver, like, to, you know.
Yeah. And so, yeah, and then he gets pissed off and he fucking steals some sort of suit of armor weapon from one of the gods, the necro sword, and then flies off just thinking about all the different people that he'll kill. And I guess it makes me, okay, so fine, it's a radical atheism motivating this, and that's and that's fine. That's a perfect motivation for a Thor comic, and pretty ballsy considering like the audience and what kind of comic it is, currently owned by Disney. And I wonder how much they're going to lean into the Thor movie. I think that's the only element of the Thor movie that I'm kind of curious about. It's just like,
plus I want to see Christian Bale try to bring him to life. It's very exciting.
I can't imagine he's going to do a good job.
I don't have high hopes, but I just mean like if you were going to put that in an actor's hands, thank you for doing your best. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what comes out of that. But what I don't like so fine, if one wants to have like some sort of like anger at the gods, there's no sense that. So you want to get pissed off at, say, God, like the God, monolithic Christian God or whatever. That God has created the universe, set all things in motion, created all manner of being, and basically set in motion the clockwork of the universe, and had the power theoretically to eliminate all evil. And so it makes sense to me. Like, if that God was real, I'd be fucking pissed. I'd be extremely upset and confused and would have to rationalize that and go through a bunch of bullshit. Fortunately, I don't. In this version of the gods, like, what I don't like is the inconsistency of how they're talked about. Like, on the one hand, Jason Aaron treats it like Sandman, like the endless, like, oh, I have to go over to my grandson's creating his first planet today. And then otherwise they're just a bunch of boobs who do nothing. And there's no, I just feel that there's no sense that like they really have any responsibility for anything. And they're not really, like, gods is not really the word that you would want to associate with them. They're just like very powerful beings.
Right. They sort of have their own civilizations and do very little they deserve to die. I mean, maybe that's also part of the narrative that Jason Aaron needed for Gore empathy. Like, if they went from planet to planet, like helping their people, providing rain and crops, and building monoliths, and being like, yes, my beautiful planet, my people, I take care of you. I am truly a fucking, he's Xerxes,
Yeah.
A just God.
Yes.
They don't. If you give me that, it's going to be pretty hard to empathize with that fucking roving psychopath. But if you give me a bunch of fucking shitty bureaucrats, these are basically the CEOs of our world. Oh yes. Yeah, I'd love Gore to go around and just absolutely put their fucking bodies on meat hooks.
Yeah, and I think like the motive. I agree with you. I think that's essentially what's happening. He's just like, because there's no sense that these gods, like, well, again, getting back to his motivation, he's like, no heaven, no hell means I can die and never have to think again, never have to feel, just blackness. Like, he's just so worn down and he just wants to fucking die. And then, but these gods they're not gods of resurrection. There's no heaven and hell. Thor doesn't bring you to, maybe he'll bring you to Valhalla, but apparently that's only for fellow superior beings. So this motivation, well, on the face of it, you can empathize with it. Like, it's mismatched with what his actions are. Because if he wants to die, he could just commit suicide.
Yeah, and the motivation, I feel like there's a bit of a hole in the motivation too, because, like, they took everything from you. He was beaten down, digested, finished. He found them in the desert. They begged for help. He found two gods. He killed them. What made him go into space to kill all the gods? Like, that should be a pretty successful catharsis. Now you have a necro sword and superpowers. Why don't you save the rest of your fucking people?
Well, that's a good point, but
it's sort of hard to make that jump for me a little bit. But Yeah.
Well, because there's no actual afterlife. Because killing all the gods is not actually going to give him what he wants. And so at a certain point, yeah, his motivation doesn't make any rational sense. Because yeah, I agree with you. Like, I butchered my first gods, and then after that, he's like, they didn't even really butcher them. He just, like, one of them was already dying, and he killed them. And
Yeah,
so,
like, would you, like, step on his face? He was already stabbed run through with a sword.
yeah. So, like, I kind of, as much as I really like Gore and I like the purity of the motivation, I think, like, I kind of want to send it back to Jason Aaron and just, like, get, another draft, please. One more time. I think you're almost there. I think he's really almost there on something really great. But either way, though, I mean, not something really great, but like something like classic, Doctor Doom classic. But they're just not quite there, and so I don't think Gore's really going to survive. But I guess that depends on the popularity amongst writers, whether or not they want to pick up that story again.
Yeah, I think he'll be around for a while. I think he'll probably be done poorly a couple times, but
Yeah, I guess we'll see.
I do love me a severed horse head and generally severed god heads. That scene when he's flying with the Pegasus and first encounters Gore.
Oh yeah,
fucking headless guy flies by on a Pegasus. Fucking terrifying. The best part too is I read it. I don't know if you read it like this digitally, but I read by panel. Like,
no, I don't.
By panel.
No, I don't do that.
Oh yeah, I do that. So in some cases it doesn't work out, and I end up having to blow up the page to be like, what the fuck just happened? But in other cases, like in this one, I didn't get to see Gore. I just saw the horror of the horse flying by for 2 panels. So I was like, oh God, what's going on? And then finally he's behind him.
Right.
So it was
very cool. That first fight is, yeah. That first fight with Gore, like when young Thor's on the ropes.
Yeah.
That makes sense as a first fight, like he's just really getting the shit kicked out of him. He's like just on the, and then basically it's trickery. What was Thor, the god of before he died? In thunder.
Yeah. He honestly, like, man, he put up a mean fucking fight though, really, considering Gore had been out there slaughtering gods.
Mm-hmm.
Like Thor came fucking at him. Fucking stabbed him in the side and wounded him badly. And
I think that's another. So in the Marvel universe, they're like, one of the things this comic's kind of dealing with is the fact that in there's Hercules. It's been established that there's just the other pantheons of the universe exist, and so if they, not the universe, sorry, of Earth, and so if they exist on Earth, they exist somewhere else, and blah blah blah. Wherever there's intelligent life, I guess there's these super beings. And so then what makes Thor special? Why do we give a shit about Thor if all these places have their various heroes? And this story doesn't really tell us why, but it kind of forces it's like, why is Superman so good? There's a whole universe of all sorts of people, and it's just like, here's a story where he's just so fucking good, and you're like, it makes sense why he's so good. And this is like it distinguishes Thor from all those other beings in a way that I haven't seen the other comics do either. Usually when Thor encounters like other alien beings and stuff like that, like he's kind of lesser than them. But in this, he's put into that bigger world, but he's still a big man in that bigger world. And you kind of need that.
Yeah, like a god among gods.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do, because you have to establish what makes Asgard different, what makes Thor different, what makes their gods sort of stand above, and that's what sort of bolsters your Marvel universe for power understanding, and it's very aware.
Yeah. Yeah. I like his interactions with the library. Actually, no, was there anything to say about the? Yeah, I guess almost immediately he goes to the library.
Yeah.
And we follow him through all the his sort of, because he thought that we don't actually see his final battle with Gore. That's another thing. Like, it's taking place in time, but there's still things from the past being withheld from us in order to keep up suspense.
Yeah, which is really, I don't know, that's really cool.
Yeah, no, it's super competent. You know, like I that's maybe sounds backhanded, but it's like, I'm like, this isn't high art or anything, and there's a lot of problems with it, but it's like very competently executed on a technical level. Like, it's,
oh yeah, like this is like, you know, clearly I have a lot of smut. We all know my comic collection's sort of an oddball. But yeah, this is something I'd like to own. I'd like to have on my shelf. You know, I think I'd go back to this, and that's a big compliment, I think, for any comic.
Yeah, even just for the art, but like, really, the story's pretty good. I was
just looking at the rendering of this giant library.
Yeah, he can kind of draw anything.
I like that he's in the Hall of Missing Gods, and he's like, these gods did not simply fade away; they were murdered. No, that's the Hall of Murder that you're looking for.
Yeah, it's an entire wing devoted to your family.
Yeah, I cracked a smile. I was like, okay, good one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the light, and for 12 issues, like, a small universe is created, and there's nothing. The only thing extraneous that is added to it is like Thor's daughters from the future. They're not quite required, but I guess they serve a purpose for whatever Aaron wanted to do going forward. But otherwise, like, everything's put on the table at the beginning, and then becomes part of the resolution at the end, and there's a couple twists and turns throughout. A couple surprises, like that Shadrach guy who always lies about what sort of god he is.
Yeah.
Wine and butterflies, and he's just like, what god are you? And it's not until like issue 12 or 10 or something, or not, sorry, issue like,
and you
10,
knew
10 or
there
11.
was something off about him.
Yeah, when he's all cute and he's all helpless or whatever.
The god of cheese and dancing.
Yeah. And then he's the god of bombs, and Gore has used him to create like this ultimate god killing ultimate god killing bomb that will reverberate throughout time. The god bomb. Just to finally, like, just in this act of ultimate nihilism, just
that's the best part too, is his like kids like vouching for him and shit, and he's literally like, I'm committing suicide. I just killed your mom. Anyway.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. And I guess what motivates Gore to do the God Bomb thing is what the fact that Thor almost beats him in the past.
I think it's more that he's just done. Like, he did it. Like, he tortured the Asgardians for like 900 years. Like, I don't know. For me, it was sort of it felt like he was finished. Like, I'm done. I'm just gonna finally. The only way I can rest in peace. And a couple people by that point had already called him a god. Which just gets him fucking going. And It was just like, okay, well, it's time for me to go. It's time for everyone to go.
Yeah. Which is fair, and that's in keeping with his motivation that we were talking about. I just meant that the reason he chose that, and he says explicitly, like, you're the one who taught me to work smart, because you almost beat me, and so now I had to think about how I was going to do it without risk any longer and just get it done. And he played the long game and becomes like a super villain. He's not just like a menace anymore. He becomes like, with a proper scheme that he can, describe to the hero as it's being completed and everything. He turns into like the proper Doctor Doom-esque villain.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, or then I don't know what to say about the resolution though, other than like all the Thors get together and beat
his ass.
And it's kind of cool. Yeah.
For some reason, we didn't get other Gores involved, so that there could be an even match. It was just like 3 Thors pummel his ass. But
Oh, funny. I didn't even think of that. You're right though, with time travel and shit. Why not? You're gonna get 3 versions of Thor, but I guess he's such an all-powerful villain.
Yeah, when maybe he wanted to fuck with Thor, like just terrorize him in high points of his life, for in every single version of himself for thousands of years. I don't know.
Yeah, do it
Awesome.
like Dr. Yeah. Well, actually, that's probably the next story, right? That's the one up on this, is like, how's this guy going to come back? He's going to come back like Professor Zoom. That might be disappointing. But
Or
that's
awesome.
an angle you could take. Yeah, well, I guess if this team comes back, if it's Jason Aaron and Ribic, then fuck, I'll check out whatever they want to do with Gore. Like,
Yeah,
kinda,
I like watching the medium Thor beat the dog shit out of those black critters, those like demon critters that come from the Necro Sword all across the whole universe.
Oh, as he's hunting, and every time he finds dead gods, he finds like, because Gore leaves monsters there for some reason. I'm not sure why he does that, kind of as a calling card, because I guess he can.
Yeah, he and especially since that's like part of his power, but I guess that just shows his power growing too, right? Or his like command over that Necro Sword.
Yeah. One thing we didn't say about Ribic's way of illustrating Gore is, when like the blackness that surrounds Gore isn't black. It's like pencil shadings. It's or a woodcut. It has a texture that isn't just the blank of the page. I really appreciate that. And he makes the distinction, like those beasties don't look like that, but Gore looks like that. So when he shows up, it has like it feels different, like he stands out from the page, and like in right from the illustrations themselves, not just from the design.
Right. Yeah. It's like sort of a horror when he shows up, and it's sort of like a jarring to the eyes a little bit.
Yeah, I see some instances that contradict what I just said, but sometimes, for good effect, I see him looking like that. Or maybe it's just in the future. I don't know. I'd have to think about that. Maybe it's just like future Gore looks like that. I'd have to look it up.
There's nobody. You know what? I'm saying, I'm making a statement right now. There's no one in comics art today that renders a bicep like that.
Oh, I'll agree with that. Yeah. That's some 1980s bicep rendering.
There's
Like
some fucking hammers coming down. Like he's looking at the governor's bicep.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Like, yeah.
The biggest,
like,
the best.
Yeah, you haven't seen this since, definitely since heavy metal and that era. Like, even in comics art, like Frank Frazetta, like he's drawing on, obviously, naturalistic illustrations of bodybuilders. But like that's not really in style, like nowadays, like, which is strange. You wouldn't think that, especially in comics art, but like the sort of realistic depictions of big fucking giant bodybuilding men, it's almost like Michelangelo-esque, in the way that you would kind of want to see.
Yeah, well, he won't that, but that's supposed to be Thor. Like, if you want to scale back like Wolverine or whatever to be a bit more animalistic, or make Cyclops actually be slim, appreciate that, Also appreciate more natural body image work in comics. It's appreciated. I like that shift, but there's some characters that just doesn't suit. This is a god. He's a powerhouse of a god. He should look like Mr. Universe. He should look like the best form of a fucking big muscly human, right?
Yeah. Well, that's why I was thinking, like a classical form, like something Greco-Roman, even though he's Norse, but like it should conform to our ideas of what godliness is, like images of Zeus and stuff like that. And it does. Yeah, man, fucking so good. Yeah. And it's weird. Again, I would like to read Secret Wars with you, where this mode is just to show like his full range. Like he draws some really weird stuff in that. And Jonathan Hickman was the writer, and it's like, it's basically like a Marvel Universe crossover.
I would treat myself to that. I like Hickman. I like Hickman enough to if he's partnered with an artist like this.
Yeah, it's very enjoyable. I like that series. I don't think about it. It didn't leave me thinking anything. It was like very bubblegum, but it looked amazing. It was so fun. Yeah. Do we want to talk about the final issue, 12? Or is there anything between then? I know we haven't talked about Old Man Thor, but I don't know. Like, I don't have anything to say
Old Man Thor is sort of like Odin-ish. I like that the creatures like just beat his ass and put him back on his throne. That's sick.
He's like, I want to die. He's
just
constantly
fucking sick. It makes me happy because that's what Gore wants. It's like it's sick. It's like it's a little Joker-ish. He doesn't really want him to die until he's ready to die also. So he just drags him along in this miserable fucking nightmare that they're both living in. It's deep dark shit. It's bad. Like that's awful.
Yeah.
And he's a torturer. He's perverse. He backstabs. He butchers. He's just like he's really bad.
Yeah, he's a bad dude. Yeah, he's a good villain. He's really menacing in all the respects, like in all the ways that you want a villain to be, but he's not like any one in particular of those things. And so you don't feel that he's like a Joker ripoff, and you don't feel like he's a ripoff of this, that, or the other thing. You're just like, this is just like, yeah.
He's smart. He's motivated. He drained all the fucking blood out of those guys.
Yeah. Out of the city of Chronix or something like that. Yeah.
He's got his little fucking critters just emptying all their blood into a fucking pond while this one dude tries to survive. It's fucking awful. Like, I was so shocked. I had to go reread that part. I was like, what? Oh, like, wow.
Well, what's the blood? I don't think I remember what the blood exactly is for, other than to be cool and cruel.
I'm pretty sure it was a portal so that he could go and fuck with young Thor and shit, wasn't it?
Yeah, but why did it? I guess because maybe it's magic, it's gods. Yeah, what am I questioning about that for? That's dumb. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was just like you need all that blood. Can I tell you something that's gonna bum you out?
Wait, what did he got that heart too?
Yeah, from the beginning of the universe, which that ties into, that sort of contradicts the motivation of Gore. He comes across that baby that's just like mutilating all those people, all that like prototypical life forms or whatever, and like he's like, yeah, Gore goes to the first god, tormenting life, and he's like, I know that life will still find a way. Well, if so, like the gods really didn't set anything in motion, and like life is something that is separate from the quote unquote gods in this universe, and they're just things, obstacles, stuff like mountains or tigers or what have you. Like they have no real responsibility for anything that has ever emerged. And so like, yeah, I kind of wish he left that part out. It really contradicts everything, and makes Gore's motivation like illogical. And I know we already talked about that, but that particular scene really, the fact that he placed it at the center, I was like, you didn't think that through enough, Aaron. Sorry.
That's fair. Yeah. Sorry, I was just checking out this portal thing again, and
it just looks so good.
Chops his arm off. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah. We could go page by page like this, like when the bomb shows up, like, oh, that's so good. That's so like 1950s, 1960s sci-fi art. The sort of shit that used to get James Cameron all woody. The stuff is all here. I
really wish the artist didn't take a break. For fucking Gore's origin. You couldn't take a break the issue before. You
got to take a break. So it's fine because you could leave all that out. You could theoretically leave that out and still have a story that makes sense.
It's true. You're right. Yeah, I guess that was maybe they thought that was the only sort of standalone part that wasn't sort of connected to the main like three timeline sort of battle.
Yeah, what they ought to have done though, because I agree with you, it was kind of a bummer, but they should have got someone better than Butch Guice to do it. You know, you've got all this lead-in time. You know that your thoroughbred just needs to take a break for a month before he gets back on the racetrack.
This is a Van Skeever
all
over again.
It's
like you it's not that it's not that I don't it's not that the guy took a break. Fine, whatever. He didn't draw that issue. No big deal. But like it's that you picked an artist so bad that it just assaulted my fucking senses. Like the guy looks like a fucking amateur. Like I've seen a Scooby-Doo comic with fucking superior art. Like the Simpsons comics are better than that. Christ almighty, you could get a street urchin to fucking illustrate better than that. Yeah. Fuck you, Butch.
Yeah. It's like you got Jim Aparo to fucking show up. It's just I don't think it's bad. I think it's just such a jarring old school drop in. It really
is an assault to think that if that guy's making money illustrating.
It's like they dropped in Jerry Ordway or something. Like it's just really fucking garbage, you know. And Jerry Ordway is a real like fuck that guy. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but fuck that guy.
You turn on a bad artist real hard.
Well, you know, he's not even like he's just a classic, and I hear people talk about this isn't a Jerry Ordway hate cast, but I just hear people like talking so well of him.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. We're gonna fucking take that guy down a pig. Anyway, I hear people bigging up this guy. You know, just like, oh, I can't believe that no one's paying Jerry Ordway to do anything anymore. And I'm like, yeah, of course, because like he's a fucking dinosaur and he was never good to begin with. And if you did, you'd end up with like a Butch Guice shithole in the middle of like fucking awesome art. And sorry, you got old, and the comic industry like left you behind. Like you were really great, and you can go to comics conventions and sign whatever, and maybe you can do like a Shazam miniseries from time to time.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
And now that we have computer coloring, we can see exactly how shitty you are at art.
Oh, well, yeah. And also the backgrounds are poorly rendered. Like it does feel rushed. I think
there's no backgrounds.
Well, that's it. You know, like
they tasked you to draw a fucking desert wasteland. You couldn't even make the characters look good in the desert wasteland. Christ.
Yeah. I think it does have the stink of a fill-in, like a rushed fill-in. So, you know, Butch, if you're listening, give us the lowdown behind the scenes. Tell us what happened here. Why'd you fucking shit the bed on us? But otherwise, because even Nick Klein that does the issue 12.
If Butch has a pool at his house, like that's how I know there's no God.
That's why I want Gore to fucking...
This is unjust. Yeah. Where's my fucking God if this guy makes a fucking career from art? Jesus.
Yeah. Okay, let's go over to issue 12.
So then you immediately flip over. Well, and the
you got
worst part
something
is,
more?
Yeah. When you go from the crucifix and you flip like one page over to Conan in bed with those babes, and you're like, oh my, like
what's so good.
What fucking awesome artwork. What awesome human figure drawing. What a fucking snowy cottage with some great shield maidens. Like I'm just back in this fully fucking realized world, and then I'm checking out Odin's sick tech, and I'm just like, then I'm in the wine cellar, everything just rendered all to fucking, it's awesome. Just awesome. Yeah. And you're just like, well, that's why it's jarring. That's why it's too much to bear.
Yeah. Just too much for any mortal to bear. And a real shame because, like Gore's a great villain. I would like to see Ribic and Neil Gaiman work together. It's kind of a shame. It's a tremendous shame that Ribic's work. Again, I really hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He's only ever done Marvel properties and like covers for Marvel. They got that dude on lockdown. I'd like to see what happens like when he works like with the Dreamweaver. I think he'd be perfect for it, particularly after reading this and Secret Wars. I think that'd be amazing. But
and I'm what's he on right now? You said
Oh, he's on the fucking Eternals with Kieran Gillen, and then like it looks great, but it also sucks. It just
and it's like
sucks.
One of those things where it's like, well, maybe they were like, he's like a good hand for doing sets in the universe.
Oh, yeah. He's suited to the property. He's suitably mythic, right? And that's what the Eternals are supposed to be. They're supposed to be like a modern mythology established, like the Fourth World properties of Jack Kirby. He kind of took that idea and he was like, "What's the Marvel version of that look like?" And so it's a Jack Kirby property, and so it ought to be treated. It doesn't ought to be, but it should. That's another way of saying ought. I'll just go with it. It should be treated that way because of what Kirby's style is like and what his tone was like. It makes sense. Anyway, but
yeah.
And Kieran Gillen has given me one of my favorite comics ever, and so I'll always love him for that. But generally speaking, I'm not interested in what your project is, dude. You're not. I don't care for your Marvel work.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now can we do issue 12?
Yeah. Sorry, and then the rest of it is just endless fighting and nihilism. Whatever.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But it just looks amazing. But I just there's once again you could just talk about over and over when Thor lifted that rock, it looked so fucking good.
Every page was so cool when the three of them were in the boat.
Yeah. And then they beat the bad guy, and great. And then we get a day in the life of Thor, coming back to normal. We get kind of a reset from 12 issues of real hardcore mythic big world shit, and this is kind of like a reset, make things small again.
Yeah.
And I got you to read this today because I just like I was saying, I'd never really seen anything like this from Thor. What did you think about it?
I liked it, and I wasn't sure that I was gonna like it, but then immediately I was sort of like along for the ride. He went and visited that guy on death row, and it was just very cool. Like he's just sort of doing duty on Earth, just sort of paying tribute to the people and sort of going around. I think he electrocuted atheist protesters.
No, okay. So you know who those are those signs that there says that they're holding it that says God hates you. In reality, it says God hates, and pardon me, audience fags. That's those Baptist those fucking people that show up at military funerals saying God hates fags and protesting anything, claiming that it's that America's decline has something to do with homosexuality, and they just really aggressive. Can't remember what they're called. Calling them Baptist is offensive because I think they have Baptist in the name though. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I think that's who those people are supposed to be. And so Thor shows up in between them and electrocutes the fuck out of them, and you're like, okay, good.
Oh, I see. That's cool. That's clever then.
Mm-hmm. Because he sits down and has beer with soldiers. He brings rain. I was just really struck by that death row scene. I was like, because then he just goes into the execution chamber and just watches the state put a man to death.
Yeah, and just stays with the guy, comforts him, like a god escorted you to your end. Brought him the rarest last meal that any human could ever experience. It's just very cool.
Yeah, just pretty. And then this was okay, he's a hero. We've already seen that, but it's this is a sort of a different. This is the good stuff. The things where he's
the people's Thor.
Yeah, the people's Thor. Yeah, no, and he's charming with women, and he's just but he's still drinking Jack Daniels out of the bottle.
Oh, hey man, listen, it takes a little extra strong drink to get Thor going.
Yeah. And and Jane Foster, talking to his old girlfriend from.
Yeah. Well, I like that he meets his environmentalist though. That's a little seed planted.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. That I really like all of that. And then he goes to visit Jane, and Jane's very cool too, so strong. She gives him like I like that she fucking like gets him to drop the tough guy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like makes him sit down and have tea.
Yeah.
Just puts him in his place. It was a power move.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it makes sense, like Jane Foster, to my knowledge, was kind of like you ever know that Spider-Man character Betty Brant? Did you ever watch the original cartoon way back when, like a practically stop motion, like the dun 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 dun, like.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, so Betty Brant was the not love interest, but she was the fellow office assistant or whatever, and I guess she was the going concern in Spider-Man comics at that time. But then who knows who fucking Betty Brant is nowadays? And and I think it's the same thing at this point with Jane Foster. She had been the romantic interest like way the fuck back when, like when Thor comics started. And I think maybe I'm wrong, but Jason Aaron's like, let's bring back Jane Foster. Let's in a sort of Grant Morrison-esque way.
Well, I mean, like Jane Foster's they used Jane Foster in the Thor movies, the Marvel.
Oh, I guess that's true.
So I guess right? So she was.
Yeah.
She's been like reimagined by. Oh no.
Gotcha.
Natalie Portman.
Lots of people. Yeah. Okay, all right. So
Natalie Portman's performance, right? So.
Yeah. So okay, there's
favorite.
a precedent. Yeah, sure. I'm sure. Is that the case? I haven't seen because she didn't show up in Ragnarok.
No, they lost her, I think, in Ragnarok. But she was in the first two.
Yeah.
And and people love her. Like, and she was great.
Okay.
Charming portrayal, great character. It's very cool.
Okay.
Thor is goofy.
Yeah, so I guess they're just kind of doing that then. So I take it back. This isn't like a Morrison-esque thing. This is just like, well, we better do something with Jane Foster.
Yeah, I honestly think so. I think it's a movie tie, but maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? Maybe.
Well, it's certainly inspired. You can't really ignore it. And he's just kind to her. I just thought it was a nice contrast. It shows like we already said this at the beginning of the conversation, but it was just like the first time where we're like, okay, yeah, Thor, I get it. This makes sense. He's a hero. He's a role model. He's I guess it's both those things. You just kind of don't see that generally. Kind of a Superman version of Thor. Nice to see.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And it should be. That's what everyone wants. Like that's what people. When you sit around and have your nerd conversation, that's what you're talking about, right? You're talking about, oh, Thor's he could beat Superman, but like, okay, well then where's my, like, show me this range of power and ability,
Yeah. Well, there we go. Now we got it. I still don't think that this Thor could beat Superman, but I don't think that anybody could beat Superman. See episode 100 for where we landed on that. I don't think.
Nice plug.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I don't know that Superman. Well, you know what? And then if you go into Superman lore, getting hit with a fully fucking magic lightning hammer would be debilitating for him. And considering the war prowess of Thor, it'd just be like. I think surprise, it would come down to surprise, but that's another, that's back to our old conversations.
Yeah. No, it's fine. It's kind of worth reevaluating. It makes me want to reevaluate. This is the closest, like I hadn't read this when we had that conversation. I don't think it changes my mind though, because in my mind, Superman is like, he's got grit and he's never going to give up. He's not going to stop. And I know this version of Thor doesn't either, but I mean, like, if you have to like level the two things against each other, I think Kal-El is going to be too smart, too witty, or too gritty. Sorry, and in the habit of being on the back heel too often. He I guess they both like have to deal with Loki and fucking
I don't know, Thor. Yeah,
Lex
but
Luthor.
I know
It's
what
a
you
real
mean. Like
bakes your noodle. Yeah.
Thor's got a lot more downtime chilling with wine and being the big dog in the yard. Superman's fucking downtrodden a lot of the time. Like that guy comes from the pits
Yeah.
to fucking bring his last effort, you know?
Yeah, like all the time, or at least that's how he should kind of be depicted. Yeah. So okay, all right. So Jason Aaron's Thor. This isn't fair because it's not only like a fraction of the big story that he told, but like what we've read so far, guilty or innocent.
Oh, innocent. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
innocent of being shitty. Very excellent. It's just so good. There's nothing to say about it, like other than that it's just I mean, like I obviously, like, you'd like to keep an artist like that for 18 trade paperbacks, but whatever.
He takes a break for 6 issues after this, and I think there's another story arc after this that is fully illustrated by Ribic, and then Russell Dauterman takes over after that, and it's kind of it makes sense as a sort of a clean break after an issue 25 where there's an anthology series comic. Anyway, it's not as jarring and bad as you would think, and the story manages to pick up after that.
It's got I didn't mind this artist that came in here.
But
Jane's,
Nick Klein. Yeah, but he doesn't stay. The person who does the stuff afterwards is a real fucking letdown, and I didn't look up who it was, or maybe it's the same guy.
It's so hard.
Yep.
It's like peeing on Grant Morrison's leg.
Yeah, it was Ron Garney again. Fucking Ron Garney comes in with. Yeah. It's like fuck off. And but yeah. And then issue 18, I don't even think I fucking read that one because who gives a shit? I just skipped over to I did like skimmed it. I was like, okay, all right. Dark elf, fine. And then I went to volume 2. And I recommend that every one listening do the same, because that's basically that's all you need. So I guess it's guilty of that. I didn't really answer the question about guilty or innocent. Kind of skipped me. Yeah, I'll say it's guilty of being inconsistent. It's guilty of having a really excellent idea and not executing it perfectly. Which but
is noticeable when the idea is really good.
Yeah. Like you're like, fuck, that's so good, and you're like, oh, you're almost there. It's just, but otherwise, yeah, fucking great. Oh.
Yeah, I understand why I actually went to go and buy it. It's just really expensive. But I know I saw there's actually an omnibus, and I was like, you know what? This guy's got chops. I could see how there's an omnibus about this.
Yeah. It's a full on story. It's a thing. Yeah, he definitely had a vision. Again, it's not great. Jason Aaron, not high artist, but good comics. Like whatever. Put him with a good artist. He'll give you something that's you're going to be entertained.
Yeah.
Now all we need is a little energon and a lot of luck.